Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of We Will Survive. My name is Kathy Brooks, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2020 presidential election. Yes, I know that the election took place on November 3rd, and today is November 21st, and there should not be any news, right? Nope. So, the 2020 election was the most important presidential election of my lifetime. I can't speak for anybody else, but in my lifetime. I thought it was super important because I could not imagine another 4 years of Donald Trump. Um, what is he? Spewing from the White House racist, sexist, xenophobic venom. He doesn't like anybody but himself. So on November the 3rd, 2020, I watched the returns like many other people, and silently and sometimes out loud prayed for Biden Harris win. I laid down about almost a little after 2 o'clock in the morning. I laid down, there was I want to say score, but I don't think that's the right term. It was 264 Biden to Trump's 214. He when I laid down, Trump looked at these numbers and said, "I won this election." And then his audience clapped. And he said, you might as well say I won. I won. I won." And then the people, they applauded him. So they're right in his delusion. But more power to him. And so he said also that he wanted all that counting to stop, not understanding apparently that you have to have 270 votes to win, and he was on the losing end. So he really, even if he thought he was going to win, he needed those ballots to be counted for him to get to 270 votes. But apparently he didn't understand this. He thought that the the counting of the ballots should have stopped at midnight. I don't know where he came up with an arbitrary midnight because it's never happened that way in my lifetime. But he just said, I don't want to wait until 4 o'clock to declare a victory because they're going to come out and say, oh, wait a minute, we found all of these, extra ballots to count. So he wanted that counting to stop. And it kind of reminded me of his thought process when he said, the more you test people, the more cases of corona you're going to find. And it's almost like he can't think logically, and numbers don't work really well for him. Of course, you're going to find more people because there are people who are symptomatic who didn't know that they had the virus. And there are ballots that don't have Trump on them. See where I'm going with that? So this man's logic is missing. And that's not, I'm not telling anybody anything. So, when I woke up, I was a little shocked because now the score was, I think it was 263 to 213. And I said, now what happened? I remember the 264, 214. Now, how did the numbers go down? And I was informed that Trump had demanded a recount. And I was like, okay, because I doubt it really seriously that they have miscounted. But okay, nobody was at 270 by that time. And so, okay. And I had no idea. I had no idea what he had in store for us. And he did say, he warned us though, it is me who was ignorant on this one. I had no idea that the counting and everything would still be going on in November 21st. Like, I had no idea. Um, so, not only is the counting continuing with Wait a minute, I want to give you the right thing. With Biden at 306, with Trump at 232. So it's actually a larger, loss that he has. So he started to file lawsuits against the states, that with the most electoral votes, where he was not doing very well, right? And even though I believe it was the USA channel had the counting of the ballots on TV, because I kept looking at it, and they were showing that there were people there who were going around and making sure they were counting the ballots properly. Um, it was televised. I mean, you could barely do anything wrong when it's the whole country could see it. But he said that he wanted some recounts. And the man who didn't want the counting to continue, all of a sudden demanded some recounts. Okay, so that was one of the things that he was demanding. And so he filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, Georgia, and Arizona. Um, and it's so funny to me because I remember him saying more than once to the black community, vote for me, what have you got to lose? And then I remember through his 3.5 years that he said that he had done more for the black community than any other president, with the exception of Lincoln. And so if he really thought that why did he just pinpoint these states with these with these districts with large African American voters in it? I mean, did he really think that we that we were like, oh yeah, yeah? He really did. Did he think that because Little Wayne stood by him looking like an idiot, um, and grinning, and saying that Trump has done so much for prison reform? What? He let a couple of people out of jail. But Little Wayne is not someone who I think should be leading people. Um, I think he should put that lean down and maybe sit down a little bit. Um, so I don't know if Trump thought, uh, 50 Cent said he was going to vote for me, and then Kanye initially said he was going to vote for me, and then Kanye took 60,000 votes away from him. So I don't know if he thought about Kanye, but then Ice Cube, met with his people, with this contract with Black America, which is questionable. Um, I don't know if he thought, you know, these rappers um, coming out for him was going to sway the black community. But what I understood from the black community is that these people turned against us. As black people, they 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 rely on black dollars to buy their music, right? And go to their concerts and all of that. And then they start saying stuff like, he's doing so much for us, and um, well, Biden's going to tax me higher or something like that. Good and well, if you have the money that 50 Cent has, and you have an accountant, and I'm sure he does, his accountant is going to get him every loophole available. In the meantime, he's going to subject all of us to more Trump. Yeah. And I wonder if Lil Wayne is wondering what's going on now that that he got incarcerated. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. And Trump shouldn't have drank it either, thinking that that last minute foolishness was going to have a positive result for him. Black people are not stupid. And maybe he should stop thinking that because there are poor, poorly funded schools in our neighborhoods, that we're not intelligent people, because intelligence and education don't are not correlated. Intelligence allows you to be um, more educated if you are someone who is in the thought process of learning. I watch my son, and my son teaches himself all kinds of stuff, and sometimes I just really enjoy talking to him because he's learned so much about finance and different things. But he was a communications major in college, so he continues to learn. I continue to learn. My sister continues to learn. Like, the people around me continue to learn. So I think that Trump doesn't really understand that we are a learned group of people. So, okay, I want to talk about some of these legal battles and the results of them. I will admit to you that initially, like, I was a little concerned about these things because I don't trust him on any level, and I don't believe anything that he says. I think that he's pathological in his. Well, okay, I'm not gonna go on and insult him. Um, so in Philadelphia, let me find my thing. He what happened to my? I'm sorry, because I had written it down, and then what else? So he compelled Philadelphia election officials to stop counting the ballots. A federal judge dismissed his request. Okay, because to me, there was a time when the polls closed, and everything that was received by that time needed to be counted. And I don't understand why he thinks they shouldn't be counted. It just makes no sense to me. Like, people have gone out of their way. There were more votes in this 2020 election than ever in the United States of America's history, right? So, why would he think you didn't? We weren't going to need those votes to be counted? And then the ballots from the military, had to come into the country and had to be counted as well. Now the problem is that in his wickedness, he threw out machines, and they had mail just sitting there at the post office because he didn't want the mail-in ballots to be counted, which he said that's not an opinion, that's a fact, because he said that. So he hired the postmaster so that he could do his bidding. And so they threw out brand new machines, to help them to count the mail and get the mail where it has to be. And so everybody in the United States is noticing that they are not, and have not been for a while, getting their mail as it should be. And so those ballots, still have to be counted. These are men and women in the armed forces. These are the people who are here to protect our very election process, right? Our ability to have a democratic election. And he wants to take the democracy out of it. That's really funny to me because he's so ignorant. It's just, we're here fighting for democracy. And he's over here talking about make America great again. And that again should tell you that he thought that there was a time when America was great. And if you ask any of his people, which many people have, it was back in slavery times, and it was back in Jim Crow times. And if they think that any of us are going back there, theoretically, these people are idiots. Okay, so I'm a dark sister, which I really, really like being black, by the way. And I'm not picking anything. So that's that. All right. So then I'm going back to his lawsuits. He compelled the state of Pennsylvania election officials to allow Trump campaign officials um, closer observation of the counting process, and that was allowed. And they found that there were very few um, issues with it, and then it impacted very few ballots, and then later on he was denied, like they had to get out of there. They compelled the Pennsylvania Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar and all 67 counties of Pennsylvania to impose an earlier date for voters to show proof of identification if it was not on their initial ballots. And see, with you see what they're doing there, right? This one kind of pissed me off more than the rest of them, because this reminds me of when black people had won the vote, and then they went in and said, you had to have an ID, or you had to have this, or you had to have that. Now they're trying to go and do it in hindsight. And how can you do that if it wasn't something that was required initially at the time of the vote? Then it can't be, you can't impose something after the fact. That's like playing a game with somebody, they lose the game, and they say, well, wait a minute. You didn't play that right. You're supposed to roll the ball 3 times. You're supposed to roll the dice and turn your head upside down or something. What is this man? What is this man? Oh my God, I cannot stand him. And I know that's really unprofessional and it's not nice. And I love the Lord and I should be able to stand him. But I cannot. He is to me on the level of Satan. And I cannot stand him as well. The judge, a state judge, denied that request. He then compelled the Montgomery County Board of Elections to stop counting the mail-in ballots, and that was also denied. Again, this is right now, today, he is still the president of the United States, and he is legally trying to go after our ability to vote and be counted. The president of the United States. And the thing about it is, the rest of the world is also watching, right? And so forever we have been going to other countries and compelling them to be more democratic in their election processes and the way that the people are treated. We have this individualistic, capitalist society, and we're tooting it as being a better way of living for the rest of the world. And you can tell that the propaganda that they have spewed globally, people are watching us because they believed it, and now they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know, that maybe they have more money, maybe they have more material things, but this right here, people around the world know this is wrong. And all you have to do is really go online and just listen to what the other people are seeing and what they're saying about it. And our propaganda is, they're not going to take that anymore. So it's going to have an everlasting effect. So in addition, he compelled the state of Pennsylvania to intervene in an already existing dispute before the United States Supreme Court about whether ballots the states received after 8 o'clock p.m. on election day should be counted. And I don't think they've come to a conclusion for that. He also asked to stop Boockvar and 7 individual counties from certifying the election results. That is still ongoing. Now, why that's still ongoing is a little is questionable, because if I voted, if I had my registration and I went to vote, why would it not be certified? What would stop that from happening? And he also tried to stop Bucks County from counting all of their mail-in ballots, and that is still ongoing as well. And then he decided, well, that's about all I can do with Pennsylvania, so let's hop on over there to Nevada. Um, he was narrowly trailing Biden in Nevada, so he believed that if they did some manipulation of the counting of the ballots, he might win the state of Nevada. So he filed a suit to impose an injunction on the automated signature verification machines used in Clark County as ballots continue to be counted. A federal judge rejected that request. He then compelled the state election officials to allow the public closer observation at a Clark County ballot counting facility, and that request was also rejected. And so, he got turned down a couple times. He lost Nevada. It is what it is. He moved on over to Michigan. Um, and so while the Associated Press called Michigan for Biden on November the 4th, the Trump campaign and the Republicans have continued to file lawsuits attempting unsuccessfully to stop the state ballot count. Biden currently leads Trump by approximately 148,000 votes. The state has seen at least 3 cases since Election Day. The one case was to halt the counting of absentee ballots on the grounds that campaign officials had not been given access to observe the process as required by state law. Excuse me. I hope my head wasn't like completely sideways the whole time. I'm sorry. Um, and that was denied. He also requested to halt the certification of election results in Detroit, Michigan's largest city and very chocolate city, and which has a strong Democratic hold, right? Um, and that was denied as well. And it just seems to me that he is going after Philadelphia, um, Detroit. Come on, these are well-known, very heavily populated black communities, and these people, my people, went out in droves and voted, and he is not happy with this black community. We're not happy with him either, so whatever. And then he petitioned to halt the certification of election results because of voter fraud. Now he's been talking about voter fraud almost since he got into the White House, and there has been no verification that there's really been voter fraud. Um, but he's still saying that. Um, I think that one is still out. So he went on to Georgia. He wanted to. Um, the counts were ongoing rather. It's extremely tight race, and he wanted to disqualify 53 ballots. So a poll watcher in Chatham County reported seeing a stack of late ballots that may have arrived after 7 p.m. on election day get mixed up with ballots that had arrived on time. So a Superior Court judge in Chatham County rejected the suit on November the 5th after hearing testimony from county officials that the ballots had, in fact, arrived on time, and saying that there's no evidence that the ballots referenced in the petition were received after 7 o'clock p.m. on Election Day. And that was that. And very little to smile about, but I take it where I can get it. So here in my adopted state of Arizona, he's really upset about this because Arizona was a Republican state and it has flipped and become Democratic. And I could not be happier about that because when I came here, that was one of the things I was most concerned about. Some of the things I had read about Arizona, besides it being an open carry state, which is, a little problematic for people of dark hue, I also knew that a lot of racist people were on television saying such negative things about people with any melatonin. And when I moved here, there was an election, and they were having like a town hall with these people, and one of the questions on the table was, and I don't know exactly what this was. I think it was Phoenix, but it may not have been. So don't hold me on that. But one of the questions was about allowing a Muslim mosque to be built. And the people were adamant that they did not want a mosque. And they said, and I can't forget this because it made me say, ooh, what have I gotten myself into? They said, we have tolerated the blacks, but we're not going as far as tolerating Muslims. And I was like, I'll be darned. This man knows he's on television, and he said he tolerates black people. All right. Okay. So I knew that it was a little racist here. But, Philadelphia is not free of racism. They had a big statue of Rizzo until my brothers and sisters tore that joint down. And so I knew, racism is all over this country, and there's no need to pretend that it is not. If you are blind, you know that there's been a lot of racist things happening, especially in 2020. 2020 has taken the blinders off, and everybody gets to see who everybody is, and it's disheartening because I personally don't have hate in my heart for anybody, especially I wouldn't have hate in my heart. I can't imagine having hate based on what you look like. If I dislike anybody, it's based on how you treat me. And I'm real clear about that. Because if you don't treat, and people may not like this, but it's the truth. If you don't treat somebody who I love well, but you treat me well, we're probably not going to have a problem. Unless you do something really bad. I mean, if you just don't like them, okay, let's say you don't like my sister. I might feel a way about that, but I'm not going to be your enemy unless you do something to her. And if you do something to her, then you have to deal with me. That's all I can say. That's really all I can say about it. And so, yeah. If you don't treat me poorly, then I could deal with you. I mean, we may not be best friends because you don't like my sister, so, but I could still deal with you. But if my sister's coming over, you're certainly not going to come because she's my preference. And that's what it is. So I am not, that deep. But I can't understand why other people are that deep. And it is what it is. So they came on over here, and and it's a declared Biden state, and other Fox News declared, and the Associated Press declared Biden won the state of Arizona. But there were other networks that held off because they were still counting and they didn't want to make a declarative statement. Um, and so Trump campaign and the Republican Party filed a lawsuit in the state court alleging that voters' ballots had been rejected because they contained bleeds, splotches, and stray marks. These allegations appear similar to claims circulating on social media that ballots would not be counted if voters filled them out using a Sharpie. Election officials have said that these claims are false. A lawsuit with similar allegations was filed in the same court system by a group of voters who were represented by a conservative legal fund on the 4th of November. And they then, 3 days later, on the 7th, dropped their case. They did not provide a reason for dismissing the case, but the case was dismissed. So, quite frankly, at the end of all of that, it still stands that Biden has 306 electoral votes and Trump has 232. And I would like for Trump I would like for him to be reasonable. Now, I know I'm an optimistic person, all right? Like, I know that it's not reasonable for me to think that he's going to be a reasonable person, because he is not. He could care less about anybody. He could care less about the time, you know, that is being spent recounting and all of that. He doesn't care that he's holding up the courts from things that, from work that it could be better spent doing. He doesn't care. And so I don't know why I have this optimism held out, because it's not realistic and I'm being, kind of stupid on that one. But as of today, the president-elect is Joe Biden, with a vice presidential win for Kamala Harris. And I think that has a lot to do with Trump dragging this out so long. He wanted his daughter to be the first woman elected to a presidential level. His daughter, on the other hand, is not qualified to win anything. I remember right after Trump won, I remember finding out that his daughter had clearance and everything. And I remember finding out that she had done the same thing that he accused Hillary Clinton of with her private emails. And I never heard him say anything about that. And that's when I knew for sure that we were in for a very bumpy ride. Bumpy rides sometimes give people nausea and make them car sick. And certainly on a plane, when you have turbulence, and the plane is kind of bumpy, it makes people sick and it frightens people. We don't need all of that. And yesterday, I think it was, we found out that Don Jr. has COVID. Just about everybody that's been around Trump has had COVID. And I think people should think about that, especially Trump supporters. You should really think about it. And you still hear people saying it's a hoax. It started here for us in March. That's when we initially closed down. And yes, closing down the country was a hardship for everybody, right? And it was a hardship for everybody. Businesses, um, landlords, just it's just a domino effect. If it affects one part of the country, because we are a capitalist country, it's going to affect everyone. So nobody wants to be closed down. um Nobody wants it, but we have got to get a handle on this virus. Now we're closing down again. I know that Philadelphia um is closed down, and I'm expecting and hoping that Arizona does. And the only reason I'm hoping is because I don't want to see, additional people lose their lives. Um, the number of cases per day is over 1,000, and the number of people who have died is just growing and growing. And other countries don't have numbers that are similar. They just don't. They don't have the percentages that are similar. I know that our country is larger than other countries, and so it would not be fair numerically to equate them to one another. But certainly, we should be doing more. We call ourselves bright, right? We call ourselves the leader of the free world. And yet, our president, even after he said he had the virus, I don't really believe that he had it. Um, but I believe he's a carrier. Um, Even after he supposedly had the virus, he's still not taking it seriously. And therefore, his followers are not taking it seriously. And then, the people who go to the super, like I have asthma as well. So a lot of people say, when you have asthma, it's hard to breathe. And it is super hard to breathe in the mask. And it is. It is. Um, However, I don't go into the supermarket. You know what I mean? I order my food. They either bring it to the house, or I go pick it up, and they put it in the back of the car, and I don't have contact with anybody. So instead of like infecting other people, possibly, just do something like that where there's a contactless way of getting your food, your medication, whatever else you need to get that is in a store. But please take this seriously so that we can get back to some semblance of normalcy, and we can start complaining about other stuff. Not stuff that's so serious where people are losing their lives. This should not be something that we are dealing with at the rate that we're dealing with it. It's November, and it's been since March. Our numbers should be dissipated. It should be all but gone, but it's not. So, all with that, have a great day. Take care of yourselves. Stay inside. Wear your mask. You're not following the leader. You're not, stupid. If you wear a mask, you're saving lives, and possibly saving other people from contacting it from you, in case you are a spreader who does not have symptoms. Let's love on ourselves and love on each other, and just stop the madness. And have a blessed day, everybody.